welcome. Thank you so much for coming in.
Thank you for inviting me.
Yeah, it's such a pleasure to see you here and to finally have someone come in. I can't say after it has all ended because, of course, we're still in the aftermath of the war. The ceasefire may hold, may not hold. The hostages have returned, but not all the bodies have been returned. And yet there is something very different to the feeling in the last 2 weeks than there was in the previous 2 years. And I wanted to ask you, after years of basically doing emergency work, how would you kind of describe the emotional atmosphere in Israel now, and also among the survivors and the families and the people in your field?
So it's really different from each group of population. What I can say that in common, there is a relief. Something is relieved. We can breathe again because it was like something was stuck on your chest, You couldn't forget for 1 minute that there are people still kept alive in Gaza, and you have to fight for it, and you have to go out to the streets, and you can't leave the families alone, and you need it for your health, for your recovery. So this is very common. Now, I think as much as you get closer to the people who came back as a therapist or families, the picture is changing. So something did end, but it is really a beginning, because now we start a journey. And the journey is very, very, very complicated, hard, different from each person to each person. It depends how you arrived to the captivity, what happened, what did you see on October 7th, how long had you been there, were you starving, were you tortured? So it's really, really different from each other. It's your personality, of course. We were talking between ourselves the day of the release, and we wonder how come we are not in an euphoria, because the streets were euphoric, because you know what is waiting ahead. So you can't be euphoric. Actually, you're worried. You're worried how it's going to go, how it's going to work. And we're talking directly on the hostages, but especially on the families. There is kind of a fear that lean on past experience, that after the battle is end, there is a kind of collapsing. So I guess people who are taking care of the hostages directly, they can't fall apart. They have a mission. But what's going to happen afterwards? And the process is concerning the hostages. They're coming, they're frozen. First of all, I'm not sure how they're coming. They're coming on drugs, what they have been given by the terrorists, just that they will be able to walk. And you can see that after a day or two, their reactions are different. Some of them don't want to see anyone, don't want to get in touch with anyone. And some of them are really cooperative, but there is a lot of experiences that are frozen deep inside. And it will come out slowly, 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 slowly. And you have to be there, to be with them, to listen to it, to be very empathic in terms of how close you are getting to them, how you're holding them, how you're handling them. So it's really different, So, yes, everybody is breathing again. You can feel it in the air, but tremendous amount of worries.
Yesterday, I was on a Zoom chat with a meditation group, and I kept falling asleep, which rarely happens to me, and it has been happening in the last 10 days or so. And I was saying, I'm so sorry. I don't know what's happening. I'm tired all the time. And all these people who are not from Israel, they're from Australia and different places, and they said, Anouk, it seems like your nervous system is maybe finally relaxing. Exactly. And it's so interesting, first of all, that I didn't see it myself. I work in this space, I'm interested in this space, and I didn't realize myself that this tiredness just started happening on basically on the day of the hostage return and the ceasefire. And so that's number one. And I think, if I don't realize the kind of effect that these 2 years have probably had on my nervous system, and I was very safe, a lot of people are probably in very similar states, and it's going to take time for us to understand what this has done to our functioning, on our daily functioning. And the second thing is that I want to spend a little bit of time on the kind of, you mentioned the return of the hostages, and that we don't know if they'd been put on kind of, drugs to allow them to appear functioning and smiling. So that's something that's always been very striking to me when they come back, is the difference between what I imagine people who have been spending, close to 2 years in underground tunnels with sleep deprivation and light deprivation and abuse, etc. And then this kind of, it's terrible, but kind of normal doesn't mean anything, but people walking, people walking in, smiling, hugging their families, talking. I think I was even surprised to hear that these people could still speak. What do you make of that? And, you've worked with some of these people. What does this mean? How should we look at that?
I think it has to do with us, not with them. First of all, concerning the returns, they are on a high adrenaline. Whatever they were given, the adrenaline make you really awake, at least for a short while. But one of them told his mother, and I thought to myself how smart he is. He said, "Mommy, it's me." I think it was Matan Angerst. "I'm the same person." As if he knew that we can't imagine that he is the same person. Now, we are projecting. We're projecting of what's going on there, how I would handle this, etc., etc. But they are living there. They are living, they have their spirit. You are listening to their stories, so you see who was dealing with what and who got help by spirituality, for example. We'll talk about it maybe later. But even if they are starving and they're sitting, in the dark, they are still human beings. And we can't see it. We are imagining a hole in the ground and people who are not breathing, not eating, and probably they are dying. And from time to time, they were listening short interviews or whatever, which was directed. So one of them was laying on the ground, screaming. You looked at him and said, "Okay, he's dying," but he wasn't dying. Maybe they told him, and they were standing with a gun over his head to give this show. They weren't in a 5-star hotel, okay? But they are people, human beings, and human beings have a deep power, living power to survive. And there were things that happened there that we didn't know between themselves, between them and the terrorist. There were relations there. I think the worst cases are the people who were alone. And they were telling, for example, I think Omer Weinkartz said that he was talking to himself out loud 2 hours a day and then moving. So if you have these solid capacities, so you can hold yourself and live. We from the outside are projecting the worst thing ever. And sometimes we can't imagine the worst things because we don't know what does it mean to get electric shocks, etc. But people are recovering from this and want to live.
So I want to go back a little bit to that period, even though, I started by saying that we are in a different period now, but I feel like maybe it's the first time where we can look back and take stock a little bit of what happened. So October 7th happens. You're a psychoanalyst. Psychoanalysis, from what I understand, is looking into our past and the things we might have repressed, our subconscious, our dreams, etc. And here you are in the midst of an extremely traumatic event for the whole nation of Israel, for all of us. And basically you decide to you're not picking up machine guns, but you are in a way stepping up to some kind of like emergency call. And from that moment, you've been working in this kind of like emergency situation. You're raising funds, you're recruiting therapists, you're creating protocols as you go along. Tell us a little bit more about that time. First Line Med is an organization that you created shortly after October 7th, on October 7th, or in the days after?
On October 7th evening.
Wow.
I was contacting Ofrit because she was taking care of wounded people mentally and physically because of the opposition to the
protest
revolution.
movement, yes.
So I called her. And then Merav went to Yam HaMelech. We
were talking.
Merav Roth, yes, Professor Merav Roth, yes, she's psychoanalyst. We are all psychoanalysts from different institutes. We started to organize ourselves, all the three of us. And I think for about 2.5 months, 3 months, I have inflammations in my hands because we were all day long, like 20 hours a day, on the phones, getting help messages, people who need some help, and sharing it between the psychoanalysts from all the three institutes. We have a list of 450 psychoanalysts at the beginning. Now it enlarged a little bit because we let some other psychotherapists to get in. We are all specialists in psychoanalysis, and what we did understand on the very moment that beyond the first line med, before the first help you have to give to people that are traumatic, to help them not to become post-trauma, you have to give the first intervention. But then, since we are analysts, we tend to think, and it seems that we are quite on the spot, that all these interventions should be very, very, very long. Okay, so we have bias, we are psychoanalysts, we think that every process should be very, very long and deep, but this kind of trauma, beyond the first minute, the first days, the first week, weeks, you have to go into it. We mentioned before, for example, the frozen moment of the hostages, that they're becoming in a different situation of themselves. For this to release, it takes a lot of time. So you have to be there. When we are taking someone to help, we have an obligation of 3 years therapy, at least, for free. So, because we believe that you need this length to let the process develop and deepening and to get a relief. If you ask me if it should be even more, yes. But practically, we thought the 3 years, it will be for at least for the first step enough.
So you got hundreds of analysts at first, and like you said, therapists, to basically commit to giving free therapy, free help to these people for as much as 3 years, and to be there alongside them. Where was the government in this? And what role did you fulfill that you think maybe the government should have fulfilled?
First of all, the situation with the government was already not harmonious, let's put it this way. Then what happened on October 7th? There was no government, no army, nobody. There was a neglection of the people of the Otef. And I must say that the first thing was a spontaneous reaction. But when you hear, where is the army? Where is the army? Where is the government? So you understand it's on your shoulders. So you're getting into it, first of all, because you are your motivation is to help. That's how your mind is working. How can I help? And this is very Israeli, by the way, not just psychologically or psychoanalytically or something. Everybody. People were going all through the country, sharing cascade, you say, or whatever.
Helmets and clothes and food. And
there was nothing there. So you understand the government is not there. So we decided to give help to the people who were in the Otef, not soldiers.
Otef, you mean the Gaza envelope?
Yeah. And what we did see, and we have to really share appreciation to the Social Security Organization and to the Defense Office, they were giving help quite quickly. So the people who were really, parentela one, it calls in law, it's brother and sister and parents and children.
So the people who were directly affected, shot, killed, raped, saw some, and their direct family.
The direct family, but these are not the people, only direct people that were hurt. First of all, it was a holiday. A lot of families were there, which are not brothers and sisters, grandfather and grandchildren, cousins, and all of these people didn't get help from the country. They are not getting help up to this moment. So who was taking care of these families? The second round of the families and people that were there, and nobody's taking care of them. Let's talk about girlfriends. If you had luck and you were getting married the day before October 7th, or you are getting help, and if not, your life has been ruined like everybody else's. So we decided to take care of these people, and that's what we are doing until all the people from the kibbutzim, that they weren't killed or been taken into captive, but they were there. Some luck left them, living, but so these people need help. So that's why we are taking care of these people.
Just want to address that term, trauma. We hear these terms all the time: PTSD, compound trauma, complex trauma, acute trauma. Can you just make a little bit of order for us? What does that mean? And the people who come back from captivity, how would you describe their trauma?
First of all, what is trauma? Trauma is a rupture. It is a rupture in continuity. It takes you into a situation that you can't digest and you can't vomit. So it's frozen in your mind. So you have to find ways to go beyond this, but you can't. Compound trauma means that there is several roots to the trauma. So being in captivity, it's one trauma, but coming back and see that your house is burned out and you don't have where to live, it's deepening the trauma or compounding it with some other roots. If you're finding that someone was killed, like your husband, for example, and you're all alone, so this is compound. And if you are being raped in captivity or before, so this is compound. It means that there are a lot of roots to the trauma. Acute trauma, it's when it happens. Post-trauma has its own signs of trauma that wasn't elaborated enough. So it is all different, but I think what you hear the most is the compound is because nothing was happened just by itself. This makes things very, very complicated.
Challenging to treat. And what about PTSD? How many of the people that you are treating go on to develop PTSD?
I can't tell you in percentage, to be precise, but I think those who get help quite quickly, they have chances not to develop PTSD. But a lot of people will, because it doesn't end. The length of the situation, so you can't recover. You're not arriving to a point that you can start your recovery. For example, soldiers that were fighting for hundreds of days, and they have to be men and they have to be soldiers. They're not talking about the feelings, and they're afraid to talk about the feelings because they might not be able to go back to fight. These are, let's say, bad influence on your recovery.
From your work with released hostages and people who have experienced the worst, what have you learned that captivity does to the human mind in terms of loss of control, of codependency with captors? Are there things that you think, wow, maybe you read it in books before, but now you understand something different?
There are some things that are common. I'll tell you what. I found out that all the people that were, those who were really like becoming friendly with the captured or different relation, they all never forget for 1 minute that they are hostages. I'm taking care of a woman, more or less my age. She was captured with her daughter and her grandchildren. And she didn't know what happened to her husband or her son-in-law. They were all together. And when she's telling me what happened again and again, she was organized in a way that you have to listen again and again to believe it. For example, how she would go to sleep. It's hard to sleep there. People are guarding you with guns, etc. Kids are crying, they are hungry. She was telling herself words of songs, Hebrew songs, until she was falling asleep. Why? Because she knew she must be on her legs tomorrow morning. She was doing gym. She developed conversation with the terrorists that were guarding them. she was very tense, but so thoughtful and planned and understanding the situation. For example, they were taken to be filmed for one of these releases. And by the way, she heard that the people who are guarding them are from the Hamas. So she told her daughter when she was back, we're going to be released the first. It's the Hamas. So women and kids will be released first. I said, how did you know? She knew. She understands. She's a smart woman. She became smarter. For example, she was kept alone. All of a sudden, they were taking her, putting her at the beginning in different room. She was sitting there, and there was a bird, a canary or something like this, in a cage. And she looked at the canary. She said, "Okay, if it is living here, there are people here. Somebody is coming to feed it. So someone will come soon." So you become smarter. You can't imagine before how you're going to react. So her story is different from other people's story. But you can listen when they're talking in the media. For example, Omer Weinkart, he was looking to the cameras when he was captured, so people can know where he is, that he is alive, that he was taken alive. Who thinks about it? But it seems that when it happens, you're becoming very, very intelligent, very aware. You're listening to the stories. One of the girls there said, she's not my patient, but she said, okay, I'm sitting in a room now. I can be killed any moment because there were a lot of terrorists there. I'm just 20 years old. I have done nothing for anybody in my life. I can't just die like this. Okay, so I'll help other people. And she said, from this moment on, I was just taking care of other people. I didn't care for my own fear. And it held her, together. She didn't fall apart. Find someone to serve. When you're serving somebody else, you leave yourself. So she was taking care of all the situation, not forgetting even for 1 second that they are hostages and that something very bad can happen in the first mistake that will happen. So the stories are very different. And you heard Sharabi, for example. You hear people that were thinking and spiritual. They were going spiritual, and it helps them. So I can't tell you one thing beside this awareness, and we know the processes after coming back, what's going on, how fast people are melting, and how all the things that were
buried
are coming out. It changed all the time, because a person that was 50 days in captivity is not someone that was 740 days. It is different.
I imagine that in that time, the experience of the medical professionals and therapeutic staff and also changed with experience as hostages were returning. Would you say that the protocols for how to treat these people changed over time? Sure. And if so, what are some of the core elements of it?
First of all, the answer is yes. It changed all the time. It changes all the time because we see different phenomena. And there is no experience or written experience or researchers that you can build a protocol. You can build protocols, and that's what we did in the beginning, knowing what does it mean taking care of a trauma. But after a while, after the second release, that there were already 400 to 500 days, we found different phenomena. For example, the frozen soul was different. The weight of the people were different. The tortures were different. So I think the basic thing, beyond taking care of trauma and protocols, is I would use something that I can lean on, is the empathic stance. I mean, you are getting closer slowly, and you're listening carefully. For example, what we were studying in the second release, that the released hostages should, some of them, stay together. The girls, for example, they have to stay together, not to put them separately. They need each other. the melting of the experience should be somehow together. So they put them together. Then they found out that in the hospitals it should be very warm, more like home, not hospital, not cold. So they arranged the rooms, although they are for emergency as well. But really, with carpets, who put a carpet in a hospital? But they did put. And this is on the physics, but it represents the understanding of the mental needs. In the beginning, we were all imposing ourselves on the people because of goodwill, of course. But we found out that slowly, they don't need you that close. They don't understand that they need a psychological assistance. Wait a minute, wait aside. Be careful. So this is also something that changed a lot during the releases. Now the last group that came was taking care of totally different.
I feel like you said in the beginning there was absolute euphoria. There was that day where I took my kids to Hostage Square and we were happy, and I felt like actually for the first time I was really able to talk with my kids about what had happened. For the first time we shared those conversations, and I felt free enough and relieved enough and less scared to tell them that there had been, all this devastation. They knew it, but it wasn't as...
They saw the pictures now.
They saw the pictures. We talked about it a little bit, but it's almost as if they never fully dared to ask what is happening with those people, and I didn't volunteer the information without them asking. And now I could say, all these people have returned. So it's a very interesting moment and euphoric. And then I almost feel like now is the euphoria has dissipated and there's a little bit of a sense of confusion. Like you said, this all happened very quickly. This Trump plan just appeared out of thin air. And I think for a lot of people, we don't know what we are supposed to feel. Is it over? Is it not over? Are we supposed to still be grieving? We know there are bodies there. But I think for a lot of people, we can't even imagine what that means, someone's body being somewhere else. And then what happened in Gaza, our soul as a nation. Do you feel that as well, that this moment is kind of like a moment of confusion?
Confusion is so exact, but maybe even it's a kind of small word to describe what's going on, because first of all, the battle is not ended. I mean, the battle to get back the bodies. Some people don't understand what the big deal with the bodies. Some do understand very deeply why we need the bodies back. And the Hamas, what they are doing, are they playing with us? And are they giving us an excuse to get inside again? The government wants to get inside again, but they can't, because Trump don't agree. And what's going on? You are frightened. What, the Turkish are coming now to Gaza, for example? They're dangerous for us. They're not. They're going to be a new Middle East. It's a dream. It's nonsense. You don't know what to do. And they're going to be elections. They're not going to be elections. So you are very confused. The hostages are back. Okay. Thanks God. Or thanks Trump. Or thanks whoever. Okay. They are back. Now what with the other families? So you're tired. You don't feel like going again to the kikar there. Okay. Kikar Hatufim.
To the Hostage Square.
Yeah. But you can't let yourself not going. You're not leaving them alone. For God's sake. And your relations, your private relations with the pictures. This one is back. This one's body is back. So we have all these kind of relations. What they're going to do? They're going to leave there this one or this one. Would they want to find? So this is very, very hard thoughts and feelings. And the reality, the Israeli reality, for the last several years, is not getting calm again. No quiet. And you don't know what's going to happen. Could we live here? Should we go now back to Kaplan? Are we being blamed to fight our country? And you keep working. We in FLM, for example, are getting all the time calls for help, and we keep working and we keep working. So there is kind of release, but no quietness. You can become tired, as you mentioned before, but you can't go to sleep.
How do you take care of yourself? How do you make sure you don't crumble? Where does the strength come from? Do you have places that kind of hold you, or is that kind of like an innate strength?
First of all, I think there is a kind of innate strength, as you mentioned, but I think it has to do with helping the other, with taking responsibility, with not, obeying to reality that you can't agree to. Being so central in helping gives you a lot of energy and power, and you feel you're doing something very important. But helping the other is the solution for a lot of mental pains, and I think this is the way to help the other. I can tell you a short story.
Yeah, with pleasure.
Once we were going to meet the Dalai Lama, His Holiness, in Pomaya. It's a center of preservation of the Mahayana tradition in the West. And when the Dalai Lama is coming, there are millions of people that are waiting for him, on the side of the roads and near the center. And the other day, when he was coming, his guards wouldn't let the people to get close. And one woman got into the, beyond the barriers.
The barricade.
And she was screaming because he was going away. And she was screaming, "But what shall I do with my life? What can I do with my life?" He stopped all the pamalia and he was turning around and he told her, "Find someone to serve. Find someone to serve." And this was his answer. This is the Mahayana answer. Is the Buddhist tradition of the Mahayana.
I think you said, or one of your colleagues said, that especially in your work with the people directly affected, or the first so-called, the interpretation of what they are going through or went through is less important than the presence. The presence is the most important factor in the therapy and the healing. Why is that so important, and how does it differ from the presence of family or of society or community, and what else is really important in the healing process of these people?
The practicing of the presence is very different between therapists and family and friends. It's not more important. You need the warm-hearted of your family and friends, but the method, how to get close, how to listen, what to say, how to ground people, how to help them get rid of their anxiety or fears or real fears, etc. You're a professional, you know how to listen, you know how to get close.
Are there any of the hostages where, they might say, or professionals around them might say, you're amazing, you're doing great, like they want to do it on their own, they don't need any help? Can issues arise years later, decades later?
Sure.
How does that work with people who seem to be reintegrating, and sometimes even seem stronger?
First of all, there are people who didn't seek mental help, and they're not getting any professional help of this kind. Of course, things will come out. They will come out, hopefully, by the way, in a while. It might be a year after, month after, or decade, I'm not sure, but it can happen. So, yes, some people do not want, and some people look to you very well, but you will be careful as a professional. You will tell them, you look great, you're doing beautifully, but it doesn't mean that you think that, okay, it's over. We are human beings. Things like this are not getting over by themselves. Sooner or later, you will have to take care of yourself. So you might go to a monastery and to practice meditation and Buddhism, and you may go to psychoanalysis. It is very different from each person to the other, but things should be elaborated, even if you're doing great. When I see someone coming out, like, I don't know, I'm worrying much, much, much more than people that you see that they are really in contact with their
the
inner
suffering.
world.
Yeah. For the Nova survivors and those populations, I spoke with different people who tried alternative therapies as well. I mean, there's art therapy and there's psychedelic therapy. With people who went through captivity, is there also that kind of like openness and willingness to try alternative treatments with them, or is it really going back to the basics, to psychoanalysis, to psychiatry?
You start with basics, but then you listen. You see what might be more helpful. If you need acupuncture, or you need meditation, or you need whatever, any kind of alternative therapy. So first of all, you start for what is common, conversation therapy or psychotherapy. But then you can adapt, of course, because what leads you is the subjectivity of the patient. Now, the Nova patients, the Nova survivors, it's a different story. Also, it depends what happened to them. It depends what drug were they under, if they were under a drug influence or whatever. It's a different story. And there is a lot of worries concerning the Nova survivors. They were going through a different experience, totally different experience, not talking about if they were taken hostage or wounded or whatever, and they saw people were murdered near them, being raped. It is a different story that is really being taken care of by the general situation, but by their subjectivity and what was the specific story of each one of them, what happened to him, what drug he was taking or not, etc. So the Nova is a little bit different, and there is a lot of worry concerning them.
When you look at Israeli society as a whole, not just the people who are directly affected, but our entire country, do you feel like this is a country that is in trauma, still in trauma? Are we managing to have a kind of national resilience, or do you kind of feel worried also for the future of the mental health of the people of this country?
I'm tremendously worried. I think this trauma is metastasizing, and I think thousands of people were hurt. A lot of them are not getting well. And I think the health services, mental health services in Israel are in a very, very, very bad shape. And there is now organization of all the societies and organizations of mental health that are coming soon out in calling the attention to the situation of the society in Israel. Having said that, Israelis have resilience. Israelis are amazing. It is amazing how people are really helping each other and surviving and fighting. But in general, there is a big, 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 deep worry concerning mental health services and the meta situation of the society in Israel.
Do you think there are either national or personal tools that people can use in order to increase their psychological, mental resilience?
First of all, I think countries should take care of the people. I think as fast as it's going to happen, that the government will wake up and give help to the people, I think it will get better. They need to give money, tools. Organizations should be working efficiently and professionally. Now, there is a lot of awareness to the trauma you see on TV, a lot of places that are really inviting people to get help. This is very helpful as well. Of course, I have my own bias. Go to therapy, talk about what happened to you, get help. People should know that it's common. Nobody really passed these last 2 years like nothing happened. It's common, and we're all in the same boat. Some people can help, so get some help. But if you're asking me what is the most important, is that the government will take responsibility of what happened and create a ועדת חקירה ממלכתית.
Commission of inquiry.
Yeah,
national.
taking responsibility. It's so important. If you are coming, put aside the trauma. Coming to your parents, you're talking to them, letting them know what happened to you. As a child, they didn't mean to do any evil, okay? And they do listen, and they do take responsibility, and they confirmed your feelings. You are getting recovery. This is the recovery.
It's interesting how you make the parallel with parents, and I have 3 young kids, so I'm listening about the kind of podcasts and reading about the psychological development of kids. And of course, there's so many times that I fail. I don't live up to the ideal of parenting that I would like. What I really love is that there's so much talk these days in parenting circles, etc., of the importance of repair, which says that, you know, we all fail. We're all human. You know, we all come with our own wounds. I might have yelled. I might have reacted in a way I didn't want to. But there is always that kind of that opportunity, that beautiful opportunity of repair, of when your nervous system has regulated, you can go to your child and say, you know, I yelled too much. You know, I shouldn't have yelled that loud. I'm really sorry. I'll try to do better next time. You know, that kind of owning your responsibility, and that sometimes that might even strengthen the relationship more than if you'd never blown up and you'd never repaired.
Of course.
And it's interesting that in a way, I think what you're saying is Israelis who are looking to this government as the people who have failed, and we still waiting for them to say we failed. We're sorry. You know, so many of the ministers. And we will
take care of you.
Yes, and we'll do our best to take care of you. And that's something that keeps coming up again and again with the hostage families, you know, is that the ministers never visited them, seemed to say that they were to blame for what had happened in Israel, said that, you know, the war is more important than their children, etc. And that must also be a very deep secondary trauma above the primary trauma.
This is the trauma. People were neglected. People were sitting in their safe room and waiting for the army, for God's sake. The prime minister came to visit near Oz, almost 2 years after the disaster. It's unbelievable. It's unbelievable. So I want to say this is the trauma. Where were the army? Where were the army? And where is Prime Minister? And the minister? It's unbelievable that Steve Witkoff gave his telephone number to hostages' families. And Netanyahu knows. So this is the trauma. The thing happened together. There was an attack, terrible attack, unbelievable attack of the Hamas. And you were standing alone there with your hands, with your pajamas.
What gives you hope, or what has given you hope in these last couple years? Maybe you can share, you know, some experiences either with colleagues or with patients. What has kind of been the moments of light?
With the citizen. What happened in the October 8th in the Expo, that so many people went to volunteer, to help each other, to go through the country, to under fire, to help soldiers and people from the Gaza Strip there. This gives me hope. The people in the streets that coming week after week, the people that were in Kaplan fighting for this country, this gives me a lot of hope.
Mm-hmm. Something you want to share with the audience, with people listening, something to give them hope?
It's not a suggestion, it's an inspiration not to lose hope. The society in Israel is amazing. We have very, very, very strong and loving people of this country. There are a lot of people out there that giving help, looking to give help in all different kinds of assistance that needed. You just have to open your eyes to see, to tell somebody that you are in trouble, that you are in a bad mood, that you need some help. Someone will give you a hand. After every darkness, there is a light. And we should keep going until we'll have the light and find someone to serve. This is the best suggestion I have to give other people.
The best therapy.
The best therapy, the best in a mental situation.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. If there's one thing that you could say now to all the hostages who have returned or the families, what would it be?
don't stay alone. Seek for help. You are not alone. We are here for you. We are here to help.
Yeah. That's really the core of our human condition is wanting love, to love and to be loved.
Sure.
All right, Iris, thank you so much.